Before we step into the shadows of one of history's most devastating conflicts, take a moment to support this channel by subscribing and turning on the bell icon. Your support allows us to bring more detailed and immersive historical documentaries to life. Now, let us enter the war that reshaped nations, transformed societies, and left a mark on the world that endures even today. The First World War, known in its time as the Great War, began not as a single event, but as the result of decades of tension, ambition, and rivalry among the major powers of the world. Europe, at the dawn of the 20th century, was a continent of confidence. Industrialization had transformed cities, economies, and transportation. Technology was advancing at an unprecedented rate. Empires stretched across continents, claiming colonies, resources, and influence. But underneath this progress lay political tension, nationalist ambitions, and military alliances that could pull the continent into disaster at a single spark. That spark came in June 1914, with the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, in Sarajevo. Yet the assassination alone did not create the war. Europe was a continent primed for conflict. Nations had spent decades building armies, stockpiling weapons, and forming alliances that promised support, but in doing so, guaranteed that any conflict would escalate into a global catastrophe. Within weeks of the assassination, the continent was engulfed in war. Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia. Germany declared war on Russia and France. Britain joined to defend Belgium. Within days, millions of men were marching toward a conflict they could not yet comprehend. The war began with movement, flags, fanfare, and the marching of armies that stretched across Europe. Soldiers from villages, towns, and cities left homes with the belief that this would be a short, decisive struggle. Families waved, prayed, and hoped for a swift victory. But the reality that awaited them was far harsher. Modern industrialized warfare had changed the world. The battles that followed would be unlike anything humanity had experienced. The Western Front became a stagnant, deadly theater of destruction. Trenches were dug across fields, forests, and river valleys, stretching hundreds of miles. They became homes, prisons, and killing grounds. Life in these trenches was harsh and relentless. Mud-soaked boots and uniforms, water pooled in the trenches, bringing disease and despair. Rats grew fat on human waste, corpses, and food stores. Soldiers lived in constant fear of artillery bombardments, sniper fire, and sudden attacks. The land between opposing trenches, known as no man's land, became a barren, lethal zone filled with barbed wire, cratered earth, and bodies that could not be recovered. Artillery reshaped the landscape and defined the war. Massive guns fired shells that could obliterate entire villages in minutes. The noise and force of bombardments created psychological trauma that would later be understood as shell shock. Machine guns created deadly killing zones. Poison gas added a silent, indiscriminate killer. Chlorine, phosgene, and mustard gas burned lungs and eyes, creating suffering that no soldier had previously imagined. Gas masks became standard equipment. But even with them, death and injury were constant companions. Technology transformed not only the battlefield but the scale of the war itself. Aircraft, initially used for reconnaissance, evolved into fighters and bombers, bringing combat into the skies. Tanks rolled onto battlefields, slowly but effectively breaking through trench lines. Submarines prowled the oceans, sinking merchant ships and threatening supplies. Communication technologies advanced, yet confusion remained inevitable. The modern world had become a war machine, and every aspect of life was touched by it. The conflict expanded beyond Europe. In the East, Russian armies engaged millions in massive campaigns across vast plains and harsh winters. In the Middle East, battles unfolded across deserts and mountains, involving troops from Britain, France, and local allies against the Ottoman Empire. Colonies in Africa, Asia, and the Pacific sent soldiers thousands of miles from home to fight in a war that reshaped global politics. Civilians faced famine, displacement, disease, and bombardment. Cities were destroyed, infrastructure shattered, and economies strained to their limits. The entire planet became entangled in the war. By 1916, the war had reached unprecedented levels of scale and suffering. Battles such as Verdun, the Somme, and Passchendaele became symbols of human endurance and human cost. Hundreds of thousands of soldiers were killed or wounded in a matter of months, with minimal territorial gain. Governments struggled to maintain morale, introducing propaganda to keep citizens and soldiers committed to the cause. Women entered factories, offices, and farms, replacing men who had gone to fight and redefining societies in ways that would persist long after the war. In Russia, internal pressure led to revolution. The fall of the Tsar in 1917 and the Bolshevik rise changed the Eastern Front. Russia withdrew from the war, leaving its allies to confront the Central Powers alone. Meanwhile, the entry of the United States in 1917 brought a fresh army, industrial resources, and new energy to the Allied side, tilting the balance of power and hastening the collapse of the Central Powers. The final year of the war, 1918, saw intense offensives as exhausted armies struggled to achieve victory. Germany's last attempts to break through, the lines failed. Allied forces pushed forward, advancing across devastated landscapes. Morale faltered, governments crumbled, and the world watched as the end approached. On November 11, 1918, after more than 4 years of unimaginable destruction, the guns fell silent. The armistice brought relief, but also marked the beginning of an entirely new set of challenges. The Treaty of Versailles, signed in 1919, redrew borders, imposed reparations, and dissolved empires. The Austro-Hungarian Empire, the Ottoman Empire, the German Empire, and the Russian Empire ceased to exist in their former form. New nations emerged. Europe faced economic hardship, political instability, and social upheaval. Millions of soldiers returned home, many bearing physical and psychological scars that would last a lifetime. Cities, towns, and countrysides had been reshaped, often unrecognizably. World War I introduced the world to a new scale of modern warfare, with lasting impact on politics, technology, society, and culture. It transformed international relations, leading to the creation of organizations designed to prevent such destruction in the future. It also served as a warning: when ambition, nationalism, and unchecked alliances collide, the costs can exceed comprehension. Today, the legacy of the Great War is visible in borders, governments, military strategy, and the collective memory of societies across the globe. It remains one of the most powerful reminders of what humanity endures when peace is fragile and war is embraced. Its lessons are timeless, and its impact continues to shape the modern world. If this journey through the Great War has deepened your understanding of history, make sure to subscribe and activate the bell icon. Your support ensures that stories like this remain alive for future generations. Thank you for watching. And remember, history is not just the past, it's the lens through which we understand the present and shape the future.